We all think we know our dogs, right? And we usually look to wolves to understand them. But what if I told you that to really get why your dog does what it does, we have to look at some of its way more distant and honestly much stranger relatives? We're going to take a little trip through the wider canid family tree, and you'll see what I mean.
So first up, picture a fox. Sly, keeps to itself, darts through the woods totally alone. It seems like the complete opposite of your dog who just wants to be by your side. But that solitary nature, it's actually a huge clue. It helps us figure out how our super social dogs even came to be in the first place.
And then, on the flip side, you've got the African wild dog. These guys are masters of teamwork. They operate with the kind of precision you'd see in a special forces team. The secrets hidden in their incredibly complex social lives, well, they hold up a mirror to the behaviors we see in our own dogs every single day.
All right, so let's start with the fox. By getting a handle on this master of solitude, we can establish a kind of baseline for canine behavior, before all the intense pressures of living in a pack came into play.
And what you're seeing here is this direct link between social life and communication. See, a fox lives mostly on its own, so it just doesn't need a huge vocabulary of facial expressions. But a dog or a wolf, their survival literally depends on the pack. So having this complex language of subtle looks and ear twitches and snarls is absolutely crucial. That social pressure is really what drives the evolution of communication.
So this link between behavior and biology, it was put to the ultimate test in one of the most incredible domestication experiments ever done. A group of scientists in Russia decided to see if they could basically recreate the domestication of the dog, but by using silver foxes.
And this just shows the process so perfectly. For decades, they only bred the tamest, most friendly foxes. And yeah, as you'd expect, the foxes got friendlier, almost dog-like. But here's the wild part. All these other traits, things they weren't selecting for, just started popping up. Their coats got splotchy, their ears got floppier, and that critical learning window, the socialization period, it got longer, just like it is in domestic dogs. It proved that just by selecting for one single behavior, tameness, you can unlock a whole cascade of domesticated features. Amazing stuff.
Okay, so we've seen how picking one behavior can totally change an animal. But now let's look at a behavior that can't be changed. This is the dhole, also called the Asian wild dog. For a while, people wondered if it could be an ancestor to the dingo, but one tiny, hardwired reflex proved that wasn't the case. All thanks to the science of ethology.
So what is ethology? You can think of it like animal behavior forensics. Scientists look for these innate, unlearned signals, like a bird's specific song or how an animal shows it's threatened, because those signals are like genetic fingerprints. They tell you who's related to who and who isn't.
Right, so check this out. When a dhole feels threatened, it just opens its mouth really wide in a gape. But a dog, or a wolf, or a jackal, they do that classic lip curl to show you their teeth. This difference isn't something they learn, it's baked into their DNA. For an ethologist, this is a slam dunk. It's definitive proof that the dhole is on a totally different branch of the family tree from our dogs.
Okay, we've gone from a really subtle clue to a full-blown explosion of social behavior. Let's talk about the African wild dog, because these guys represent the absolute peak of cooperation in the canid world. Their social structure is just unbelievably sophisticated. They have these complex hierarchies, they work together to hunt animals way bigger than they are, and get this, the entire pack helps raise the pups. But the most amazing part? It's the rituals they have to keep the team working like a well-oiled machine.
Just think about that for a second. Before they do the most dangerous, high-stakes thing they do all day, they have a mandatory team meeting. This whole ceremony of greeting and nose-licking, it's not just them being friendly. It's a critical tool to get everyone on the same page, smooth over any friction, and get the whole group focused. It's literally teamwork turned into a ritual.
So, we've met the solitary fox, the very distinct dhole, and the super social wild dog. What does all of this actually mean for that furry buddy of yours who's probably snoozing on the couch right now? It really all comes down to this one simple, powerful idea. The more complicated your group life is, the more complicated your ways of communicating have to be. The need to work together to solve problems, to show what you're thinking, that is the evolutionary pressure that created the rich, expressive faces we see in our dogs.
You know that look your dog gives you from across the room? Or that tiny twitch of its ear? That is not an accident. It's an evolutionary inheritance. It's a communication toolkit that was built over millions of years by ancestors who lived or died based on how well they could work together. Your dog is wired for that connection because its wild family are the absolute masters of it.
So after this little journey through the canid family, hopefully you have a new way of looking at things. Your dog isn't just a pet, it's the descendant of a long, long line of expert communicators. The next time it looks at you, remember that social legacy it's carrying. The real question is, are you listening?